has become an unexpected catalyst for tech adoption globally. A recent report shows that we have vaulted 5 years forward in consumer and business digital adoption in a matter of around just 8 weeks. This digital acceleration is being felt keenly in the financial services sector as well. During lockdown, as banks have closed branches and moved their face to face personnel to overloaded telephone support services, reliance on digital banking and digital payments has become a fundamental into our day to day lives. Now, anticipations are that the fintech domain is to play a very crucial role in a post COVID 19 world. And for that to happen, the fintech industry needs to evolve and adapt to this new scenario. So, how can financial institutions do that? So, today with us, we have Mr. Sean Hunter, Chief Information Officer at OakNorth, which is a UK based digital bank that focuses on lending to small and medium enterprises. Hi, Sean, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks, Priya. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Great. It seems like a very we have not heard about OakNorth before, and I'm sure that our users or listeners haven't heard of it either. So we want to know more about the company. If you can brief us about OakNorth, its specialization and the services it offers.
Sure thing. So thanks for having me on. So there are two parts to the OakNorth business. We have a SaaS business, which produces the OakNorth Credit Intelligence Suite. And in the UK, we have a bank, OakNorth Bank. The Credit Intelligence Suite transforms commercial lending by helping banks build deeper relationships with clients and using tech and so on to open new profitable opportunities and deliver much better credit decisions up to 10 times faster than traditional models with lower risk, greater efficiency. We built this software over 5 years with an engineering and credit science team of over 250 people. And then in the UK, as a bank, we've been showing how this software platform works by lending to small and medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs.
Glad to know. Thank you so much for letting us know about Oak North. Initially, in my introduction, I was talking about fintech and the role of technology in financial services. Fintech is no such industry that made it big overnight. The industry, as we see it today, is the result of various technologies or innovations throughout the years, starting from the introduction of credit cards, whose aim was to reduce the burden of carrying liquid cash. Now, this served as a hallmark with the banking industry shifting to digital services. A few years down the lane, we had ATMs that came into existence, and eventually, the banking sector started subscribing to more accurate record keeping systems. Now, with so much new developments, we would want to know with what mission the company was set up, and also if you can tell us about your journey since the inception of the company as well.
Sure. So OakNorth was set up by two entrepreneurs, Joel Pellman and Rishi Khosla, in response to a problem that they had seen, which previously they ran a business which was a services business, outsourcing the roles of analysts and associates to large banks, investment funds, and so on. And that business was called Copal Amber, and there was a very large presence in India in that business. While they were building that business, they needed a small amount of working capital to grow that business. And they went to banks in the UK because they were based in the UK. And the banks said to them, no. They said they would lend them up to £100,000 backed by property. And they didn't have property to pledge because they had been working for no money, trying to build their business. And then a small amount of time later, sort of 18 months later, they were working with Citi in the US, and they were working. It just so happened Citi was a client, and the Special Situations Group at Citi was a client. And the Special Situations Group at Citi offered to do them a unsecured dividend recap, which is a sort of fancy type of loan, for $10 million. And they said, this is crazy. The best we could get in the UK was £100,000. In the US, we're getting offered $10 million because we have this special relationship with our client. And it just seems like this market is totally broken. And so eventually they sold that business. They built it up to over 3,000 employees, sold it to Moody's Corporation, and it became the sort of founding part of Moody's Knowledge Services. But they decided to address this problem of the missing middle, which are businesses which are too large for an automated decision, too large for a peer-to-peer type of lending, but too small for the big banks to take seriously. And these businesses around the world are the engine of economic growth, employment, and they struggle to get the kind of fast, flexible debt finance that they need to scale. And so they decided to found OakNorth to address that particular problem.
Great. I think that with it was a very strong mission the company was set up with, and we're glad to see Oak North addressing certain problems or certain critical challenges that are faced in the Indian average financial services industry. Having said that, fintechs are emerging as a natural solution to the demand for rapid digitalization. The fintech revolution is more emerged from the previous global financial crisis, with more and more companies in the fintech space trying to build on a model of agility, flexibility, and innovation in the face of uncertainty. So, being as a chief information officer, we would want to know more about you. What has been your role and your contribution towards the company as well as the overall industry?
Yeah, so as you say, technology has always been central to financial services, and financial companies are always trying to innovate and improve the services that they offer to customers, in particular by improving their technology. And so, for me personally, I've always been part of that for a long time. So I worked for a dot-com during the dot-com era, and then I went to Goldman Sachs. And at Goldman, I was working in the front office of the securities division, but as what they call a strategist, which is a quant developer, so a software developer with a particular focus on quantitative analytics and so on. And it was pretty clear that technology was really at the heart of what was making them at the time an industry leader. And that sort of got me really, excited about the impact that technology can have on finance. After 8 years at Goldman, I left to join a software company called Palantir, which is a Silicon Valley software company specifically focused on data analysis and basically set up to help large enterprises make sense of all the data that they have. Because I could see that at the heart of, technology in and of itself is not enough. You basically need data to make good decisions. And so I could see that data was really at the center of the next revolution in fintech. And so that was definitely what I was interested in. And at Palantir, I focused on working with financial companies on using technology to identify unauthorized trading. So when, traders that are employed by the bank sort of go rogue and do things they're not supposed to do. And that led to a joint venture called Signac, which I was co-head of. And then when that joint venture wound up, I came to OakNorth. And I came to OakNorth because I met the founders and I thought they seemed really fascinating. What they were doing seemed really important to me. And I felt like I could really, really learn a lot from them. And yeah, I was the first employee after them in the SaaS platform side of the business. And it's been a very exciting time.
Quite an impressive profile, Sean, and seems very the profile seems very interesting. And you rightly pointed out like how data is trying to solve a lot of problems, and your interest in data and how it can be a future asset as well. So in the year 2020, the global fintech investment will has shot up to a whooping of US $44 billion. That is like a 14% rise from the previous year, that is in 2019. Now, although the USA is the largest investor in fintech globally with a contribution of around $22 billion, due to the increased industrialization, most Asian developing countries are also becoming the growing hub of fintech. Now, the primary reason behind the global acceptance and growth of fintech is because they help the people who are otherwise unbanked to make use of the application and help them with their financial transactions. So, since in the initial introduction you mentioned that you're also talking, you have teams in India as well. So, we
Mhm.
would also want to know more about, how Oak North tech capabilities are used in India, and how also do you wish to expand your teams here in India?
Yeah, so I mean, the one thing that everyone knows about India is the tech talent is just incredible. The depth of tech talent is absolutely amazing. Um, so we have offices in Gurugram, Bengaluru, Hyderabad. They're incredibly important to our global operations. They're, some of our main software developers. some of our main credit scientists who do the data analysis coupled with credit analysis. And we're continuously looking to hire top talent working in software engineering, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and credit analysis in India, because we think that that's, really core to our success on an ongoing basis.
Definitely, I think when talking about India, there are a lot of opportunities and scope for I believe every company that probably would want to expand their teams here. And you rightly said the talent here is quite incredible. And with more and more technology adoption, I think we need more such skilled talent because I think India is also becoming as more of an emerging power in terms of AI as well. Um, yeah, since we're talking about technology, I believe it is disrupting every industry, and financial services is no exception. And it has a potential to save billions of dollars annually as well. Now, a lot of trends are emerging in blockchain technology, and financial institutions are making use of smart contracts, digital payments, trading shares, identity management, etc., and a lot more, I believe. But in the long term, it holds a power to change the dynamics of the entire industry. So, we would want to know how OakNorth is using artificial intelligence, machine learning, or any such technology to help banks in other markets lend smarter, faster, and more to businesses.
Yeah, so we use AI and machine learning extensively, and it's a key enabler of the disruptive innovation that has led to the evolution of our product and services. We basically, it's at the heart of the credit intelligence suite, which has been deployed by a number of leading banks, especially in the US, including Capital One, PNC, Fifth Third, SMBC, ABN AMRO, Customers Bank, Old National Bank, NIBC, a bunch of others. And basically what we do with AI machine learning, we use it for a number of things. So firstly, if you understand the credit analysis problem, at the heart of the credit analysis problem is looking at a business and trying to decide whether or not, lending to that business is a good idea. And there are several dimensions to that. So the first is looking at the sector that the business is in. So if you look at a particular industry, can you tell what the prospects for that industry are in the future? And we use AI to help us to identify what are the main driving factors that are affecting a particular industry and produce forecasts, if we can, of those factors. So, if you've got logistics, for example, can you look at what are the things that drive the future path of costs and revenue for a logistics business? Then the next problem is, okay, we feel good about the logistics sector. What about this particular business? Like, how does it compare to other similar businesses? Well, one of the things you need to address is look at what is a similar business, find the businesses that are similar to a particular business. And what a lot of banks do is they just use a sector code. But the problem is sector codes, firstly, are often wrong. But secondly, they're very, very broad. And they don't take into account the differences between businesses. So, a logistics business that specializes in home delivery of packages is totally different from a logistics business that is doing worldwide shipping of containers, right? Likewise, a luxury hotel is very different from a budget hotel that's specialized in, business travel. So you really need to get granular. And so AI and machine learning really help us because we can find businesses that are similar to a particular business along a bunch of different dimensions, not just the obvious things. And we do that using a learning to rank model. It's a little bit like how Netflix would recommend a program for you to watch based on things that you've watched in the past. And then the final sort of chapter is, okay, you happy with the comparison between this business and other similar businesses. Now, can we understand the finances of this particular business in a real large amount of depth? And the way you do that also involves some AI and machine learning to ingest the borrower's documents, to do various other things, to produce warning signals and so on. So there's lots and lots of different things we use this technology for.
Quite impressive, Sean. Thank you for explaining in detail about how you've been using different technologies. But since you've explained on the company side that how these technologies are leveraged, can you also highlight that how your clients have also benefited from your platform or the services that you have offered, which in which technology has played a major role?
Yeah, sure. So clients benefit because basically, if you talk to banks, and I've spoken to banks around the world, from the West Coast of the US to the Philippines, large banks, small banks, banks in old, mature economies, banks in growing, developing economies, and everywhere in between. And they all say that they find this particular segment very, very challenging to address. So these kind of fast growing businesses that, especially services businesses and so on, that don't necessarily have hard assets that they can use to secure a loan, banks find it very challenging to really address their needs properly. And so um, our clients, which are banks, benefit because they're able to actually do really deep credit analysis, understand these businesses, provide them a much better service. Um, and the better service means that these borrowers are able to get the debt finance they need in order to grow their businesses, which is obviously very good for them and very good for those businesses because they're able to, create employment and do all the things that they do to benefit the economy more broadly.
Yeah, definitely. I think that makes quite a lot of sense, and eventually we want the entire world or the entire banking system to be more efficient, and I believe technology plays here a major role too.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now, rapid digital transformation is also relevant not just for the retail side, but also from an overall institutional perspective. Now, operating in a highly regulated sector pre-lockdown, banks would normally allow only trading a form of monitored desk or trading floor. To allow traders to work from home, a whole new model has had to be adopted with significant relaxation of systems and controls. Now, these are some of the challenges that probably the financial sector or banks and institutions have been had faced during the COVID lockdown in 2020. So, we would want to know how you have been able to pivot in COVID times, because since we're talking about OakNorth, which is majorly into the financial sector, and how have you been able to cope up with the situation?
Yeah, it's been an interesting challenge. I mean, I think one of the things that benefits us is we have a very modern internal infrastructure. We're fully cloud hosted and so on. So from lots of sort of technical perspectives, our people can work anywhere. There's no particular obstacles to that from a tech perspective. But obviously, as you mentioned, there's regulatory and compliance dimensions to this. From our point of view, the things that have been most important is try to figure out how we can continue to give our clients a very good service. And so as a bank, those are the borrowers. And normally, we pride ourselves on a very personal interaction with our borrowers where we actually go meet them face to face. They come into the credit committee to hear decisions and so on and discuss things with us. So part of it was, as a bank, figuring out how we can continue some of that same approach, even though we can't do things face to face in the way that we would perhaps most like. And then as a tech company, a big part of it is figuring out, okay, how can we best reach our clients who are banks? And for us, in lots of ways, the COVID crisis and the lockdowns and so on have been surprising because it's actually, in many ways, we've been more efficient because we haven't had to travel. We've been able to do things, on Zoom, which we previously would have had to travel to do. And that's meant that actually, we can do more meetings in a day, we can see more clients, and so on. And so some of the it's not all negative, the ramifications of that, but it does mean that you have to pay extra attention to make sure that you're maintaining a good relationship with the clients and so on, because those things just require more attention if you're not meeting people face to face. If you're able to go grab a coffee with someone, you get a different quality of interaction to if you're on a Zoom meeting. And so, obviously we welcome the gradual easing of restrictions as things improve. And but it actually hasn't been as bad as perhaps we feared it might be to start with.
Yeah, definitely. I think no matter like every coin has its two sides, and
Mhm.
while we have been talking about the cons and the negatives of COVID-19, there have been some positives as well, and which you have rightfully mentioned about it. But again, when you're talking about in-person meetings, in-person interactions, of course, the quality of interaction that we have is different than we have on Zoom calls. But yeah, it's all about balancing, I believe, and sticking to the trend and making sure we or the company as a whole are trying to provide effective services to our clients eventually. And that's what we are here for. So I think I very much liked your point in for that matter. So, fintech companies are the main agenda of them is to improve the profitability and operations of traditional financial institutions. So these companies can better several functions like customer registration, account management, security checks, payment processing, and a lot of other processes as well that usually require human involvement as they leverage a technical expertise and inside knowledge of banking systems. Now, having said that, a lot more fintech startups are coming up and specializing in cloud computing, robotic process automation, RPA, API development, and a lot of deployments are getting lucrative. And few financial institutions are already scrutinizing firms that have sustainable business model and also a massive customer base. So we want to know how OakNorth is different from other companies in the fintech space, and what makes the company innovative. And are there any key partnerships and involvements done to drive the innovation?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. So innovation is really core to everything we do. We think that, you know, a very, we constantly are guided by the what we call right ambition. So the right ambition is not to just try and be personally successful, but to try and think, how can I make my customer successful? And if we can make our customers successful, we can derive our own success from that. Um, and I think that's a good way of thinking about building a sustainable business, because if we're making our customers successful, they will be fine with sharing some of that success with us. Whereas if we're just trying to monetize them as much as possible, they will come to, resent that. And I think, that's not a good foundation for a long-term partnership, which is really what you need if you're going to deliver true innovation. I think, one of the things that makes us different is we've, because of our founders' sort of history as entrepreneurs, they've driven everything they do by being sort of profitable from day one. So as a bank, they were cash flow positive after 11 months and paid back all accrued losses after 23 months. So they've always run the bank as a profitable business, and we're profitable at a group level, and we think that profit is a very important bellwether because it sort of guides you to making good business decisions, because you have to be sure that the market is willing to pay for your goods and services. I think a lot of fintechs have sort of focused primarily on driving their top line growth and sort of delivering innovation, but they haven't had that sort of market check to make sure, is what we're producing something that people are actually prepared to pay for? Because if it's not, it's hard to say whether or not you actually have a long-term sustainable business. And so that's one thing that's, I think, quite different from many other fintechs.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's quite impressive, and eventually, we all are moving towards a revolution, which is the digitization of the financial sector. And banking institutions have always been in search of technologies that would help them improve their customer service, and that's when fintech comes into play. And further, if you talk about technology, it has also been helpful in promoting innovation and helping gain efficiency as well. The primary aim is to develop the financial services provided to the customers through customer experience management and to reduce the bank's dependency on branches to function. Having having said all of this, the benefits or the ultimate goal of fintech. fintech is basically finance and technology. So technology also is a dominant role player in this as well. So earlier when we spoke about AI and machine learning, how it is being used at OakNorth, but here we also want to know that what are your views on technologies like AI, big data, and for that matter automation as well, as they're impacting today's every sector and innovation, and how has the role of a leader changed over the years with the advent of these technologies?
So, from my perspective, I think that data and technology are obviously central to everything we do these days. And everything we do is generating more and more data. And businesses and so on, and governments, even everyone is trying to be driven more by what data is telling them. And I think that's a positive innovation. I think in general, people need to be aware of the consequences of that, data-driven culture, and make sure that data is being used to promote fairness and opportunity and so on. So I think there are things that people need to be aware of, and as a leader, I think it's your responsibility to be part of that. Make sure that the data innovations that you're bringing are sort of net positive for society and net positive for your team. I think from a team perspective and from my point of view as a leader, the key things that I try to do is I try to enable my team. I try to look at what are the things that are blocking my team, what are the things that are holding them back, and how can I, as a leader, make those things essentially go away. So a big part of what I'm always trying to do is look at my team and try and figure out what are the things that could make them more effective and help them to go faster. Because often, momentum solves a lot of problems. And so, for example, with clients, if you're developing a software product, obviously it's not going to be perfect day one. And you can't wait for it to be perfect before you release it. So there's always going to be features that clients want that aren't there in the product. If you've got a lot of momentum and you're delivering things fast, then a lot of clients will cut you a fair amount of slack, because they'll go, oh, well, the software doesn't have necessarily every single feature I might want, but they're delivering new features at a rate of, every week they're delivering new features. So therefore, probably the features that I want are going to come super fast. And that's really important, because if people feel like that you've got momentum, then they want to be part of that. And that has a positive effect, it's like a virtuous circle where you're constantly delivering new stuff. Clients like it because the software is visibly improving. People on your team feel motivated by it because everyone wants to be part of something that's getting better. And so then things just keep improving, which is I think very, very important. Because this kind of momentum, if you lacking momentum, it can be very hard to get started.
Definitely, I think the vicious cycle that you mentioned is currently now the underlying component or the element that we need in order to make sure that we are providing new stuff to our customers and clients and making sure they're happy, because customers today also expect up to date and newest of solutions that can help them amplify their experience. So that's more of a need rather than expecting the companies to be in that. One final question for you, Sean, and that would be, what are your views on the future of fintech industry?
So I think the fintech industry has a very, very bright future. I think, if you work in finance, obviously there's so much that you can see needs to be done. And so I think, fintech has a very bright future, but it's important for fintech to focus on what clients are actually, what they really want, and how can we really help them. And I think, fintechs do that to really focus on the customer, then they have a very bright future.
Definitely looking forward to the bright future, of course. And the factor underlying all technological development is the ability of human beings to adapt to change. And fintech is a result of one such human ability, which encourages innovation. So fintech and banking together have joined hands to revive the financial sector by helping shape a better future of the financial sectors, by helping both the banking sectors and the customers at the same time. They also provide features that can be integrated with banking platforms with the help of various applications. So eventually, overall fintech solutions from digital payments and AI-enabled services to potential new forms of digital currency that we might see soon in the future are the key components of the new normal in finance. Thank you so much, Sean. It was a pleasure having you with us today, and thank you for helping us know more about OakNorth and its capabilities and services, and also letting us know about your journey and what are your perspectives on different technologies and the overall fintech industry. It was quite an insightful one. Hope
You
you
are
also enjoyed having a great time being at a podcast.
you are very, very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was really a lot of fun.
Great, thank you so much. So, for our listeners, just to know that we are also on Spotify and Google Podcast. Go ahead and listen to our podcast over there. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for one more podcast. Thank you so much.